Welcome to Come Follow Me, a monthly show about vocations to the priesthood, produced by the Office for Vocations in conjunction with a diocesan TV ministry and the Knights of Columbus. I'm Father Fred Franey, and I'll be your host for this series. Each month we'll be speaking with a priest from our diocese about their own calling to ordained ministry, followed by a segment from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops entitled Fishers of Men. So stay tuned as we discover how our priests have answered the call of Jesus Christ to come follow me. Well, this month on the program, it's my delight to welcome Father Nicholas Desimone, newly ordained priest for the Diocese of Worcester. Thank you so much for joining us, Father.
Thank you, Father Fred.
You know, you are, right now, the youngest priest in the Diocese of Worcester.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, on the weekend of your ordination, I actually preached on vocations up in Gardner, and I said to the people, today is a bittersweet day, because today I had to surrender a title that I've affectionately carried for the last 2 years in the diocese as youngest priest. But you know what? What a great way to give it up, you know. And
Thank you.
It'd be nice if we didn't have to wait 2 years to give these titles up, huh? And in a real way, you know, the people at home right now are looking at you and I, and they're seeing the future of the Diocese of Worcester. And if I can be, you know, so humble to say this, I think the future looks pretty good.
So, good from where I'm sitting. Yeah.
Father, just briefly, give us a little history of your background, where you were born and raised.
Sure. I was born and raised in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's where I went to college at Holy Cross. I grew up at Our Lady of Loretto Parish on Massasoit Road.
Great. Mm-hmm. Now, each priest has their own personal vocation story, and yours is unique. I know there was many things that attributed to your vocation story, and a particular priest as well. So if you'd like to share that with us, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Actually, I've been blessed throughout my life with a number of priests that have been very influential for me in my priesthood, beginning with my pastor growing up, Father James Aquino, at Our Lady of Loretto, who was always encouraging me and very supportive of me in my early years. And then the Jesuits at Holy Cross were a wonderful influence in my vocation. And then it was when I was in college that I met Monsignor Mike Rose, and he really kind of took me that final stretch that I was able to say, yes, now this is something that I want. I want to be a priest. So those are just a few of the many priests that have influenced me.
Good. And you and I spent some time together at Mount St. Mary's Seminary and University in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and then something happened. Something happened. Right. And you know, there's a great deal of mystique because you were transferred. You were sent over to Rome, to the Pontifical North American College to study your theology. And there's a mystique that surrounds priests who study in Rome, and there's a lot of questions associated with people ask, you know, is it something a man petitions for? Is it something that he's asked by his bishop to do? In your individual case, you know, what events transpired that led you to Rome?
Well, when I was in college, I decided to apply to the diocese for the priestly formation program. And when I sat down with Bishop McManus just a few days after he was installed as our bishop, we had discussed the possibility of where I might study in seminary. And the topic came up of the North American College. But at that point, I wasn't ready. I still needed to do some years of pre-theology and philosophy. And so he assigned me to Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg. And I had 2 wonderful years there. I was very happy there. And then at about halfway through my second year there, he asked if I would be interested in studying at the North American College, and I was. And I was very happy to accept that invitation. Yeah.
Now, obviously, an incredible experience. You know, your years in Rome. Any highlights from those years in Rome?
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, you yourself have visited Rome. But to live and to study in a place where so many saints have gone before us, to walk in the footsteps of Peter and Paul, to be close to the Holy Father, and to be able to see him at the Angelus, at the audiences, to celebrate Christmas Mass with the Holy Father. Those are some memorable moments. But I tell you, one of the most profound, I think, for me, was Bishop McManus once visited Rome, and while he was there, he celebrated Mass at the tomb of St. Peter. And it was incredible for me to be there at Mass with our bishop at the tomb of the Prince of the Apostles with Bishop McManus, who is our connection to the Apostles. And for me, that was a very special moment, a special day for me. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for sharing that with us. I know there's young men who are listening to us talk right now, who are watching this, who may feel exactly the same way that you and I felt while we were growing up. They feel this tug on their hearts, but perhaps they don't know how to respond or where to go from here. What advice do you have to the young men that I'm convinced, as I'm sure you are, that are out there, that are feeling this call, but they're apprehensive? Maybe they're sitting on the fence. They don't know whether to stay or to go. What advice could you offer to them?
Well, I would say not to be embarrassed by it. I think we have a tendency to be embarrassed by this vocation, this calling, but it's definitely not something to be embarrassed of. And I would just encourage them to give it a shot. I mean, there's nothing to be afraid of. What's the worst that could happen? You try it out and you discern that it's not for you. Well, then you're all the better for it.
That's right.
But to have that inclination and never to try, never to see where it goes, that's a real shame. So I'd say not to be afraid to give it a try and to just stay faithful, to pray about it, and be truthful with yourself.
You make a valid point, because a lot of men, would you like to be, you ever think about the priesthood? They think, tomorrow they have to make up their minds and then pack their bags and say goodbye to their family and friends forever. But I think you make a valid point. Just give it a try, I mean, and I completely agree with you. I concur with your remarks of, a man who goes into the seminary who may leave is a man who's going to be all the better husband, father,
That's right.
and everything else like
That's
that.
right. And I don't think that there are many people who enter seminary and on the first day of seminary say, yep, this was for me, I'm going to be a priest. That comes years into the process of seminary. So
I think we learned once during a rector's conference at the Mount, you and I think it was Monsignor Rolfs who said to us, he said, the best strategy for rededication each day of your priesthood is to wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to be the best priest I can be.
That's right.
And to have that mentality through each and every day, even
right.
through the ups and the downs. Okay, because you're newly ordained, and I know it's been a whirlwind, and your ordination day, your first Mass, just tell us briefly a little bit about that, what you were feeling, what the great points of that were.
Well, honestly, I expected to be a mess, but it was a very smooth weekend of events between the ordination and then the first Mass. But I tell you, I mean, it's unreal to be the priest and to hold the host in your hand and to say, this is my body and this is my blood. You've heard it thousands of times throughout your life, but to be the one to say it, and for there to be a change, that is an incredible experience, an incredible moment, and one for which I'm still haven't completely unpacked yet. So, as you said, I'm still wet behind the ears. So it's still coming to me, and just still new to me, and continue to pray about it. But it's been a great few weeks, and there's something wonderful knowing that this is what was meant for me, and to do it. That's something that's really amazing.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you could. After my ordination, a sister actually grabbed me. And somebody wanted to go to confession, and I mean, right after ordination, you turn around and you say, well, I'll find a priest, and you forget. I know exactly what you mean. I can do that now. Wow, what a great gift that God's given us.
That's right.
I mean, where are you now, and what's the future hold? Because I know where you are now, you won't be for long. So
right.
Just tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Well, I'm presently the temporary associate pastor at St. Joseph's in Fitchburg, one of the new parishes that was created in Fitchburg. But I'll only be there till October, and then I'll return to Rome for one final year of studies.
Okay. You get your licentiate?
Yes,
okay,
in dogmatic theology.
Yeah. Anything you're looking forward to going back, or will it be bittersweet?
It will be. Once you're ordained a priest, you don't really want to get out of parish ministry.
Right.
But I think I'm looking forward most to celebrating Masses in so many of these holy places in Rome.
Yeah.
The altar of St. Peter, the altar of St. Philip Neri, the altar of St. Ignatius Loyola.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the many things I'm looking forward to.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your yes. And I know, if we keep up the work, we can inspire young men. I think it's easier in a lot of ways for young men to look at younger priests and be able to approach us and say, what's going on? And they'll watch this, and I think this will bear tremendous fruit. So
I think so.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you again for God's yes.
Thank you.
For the yes to God, God's yes. God said yes, and you said yes back, so that's perfect.